let's talk about galvanized steel ladder cable trays. Now I know, it sounds super specific, but getting this one choice wrong can lead to some absolutely massive budget blowouts and killer project delays. We're going to walk through how to prevent some of these really costly mistakes. So let's just start with a number, 15%. Now, this isn't a discount, it's not a margin of error. No, this is the amount a single, totally avoidable specification mistake added to the entire cable management budget of a major project. A mistake that, frankly, never should have happened.
And what does a 15% budget overrun actually look like in the real world? Well, it looks like this. 800 meters of brand new, freshly installed cable tray being ripped out and replaced. And this was within the first year. That's almost a full kilometer of wasted material, wasted labor, and wasted time.
Okay, so let's break down exactly what went wrong. This brings us to our first real-world example, the Shandong petrochemical project. And trust me, it's a perfect case study of how one tiny detail on a spec sheet can snowball into a massive failure. So the project was huge. We're talking 12,000 meters of cable tray. And the critical error? Somebody specified the wrong coating grade. You just can't use a standard protective coating in a highly corrosive petrochemical environment. The result? Catastrophic corrosion that forced that replacement we just saw and tacked on that painful 15% to the budget. You see, this wasn't a product failure. It was a planning failure. And this really gets us to the heart of the technical issue, that constant battle against corrosion. Here's the most important thing to remember. When it comes to galvanized coatings, you're not just picking a commodity off a shelf. You are making a fundamental engineering decision about how long your entire system is going to last. And this slide right here shows you why it matters so much. On the left, you've got hot dip galvanized, or HDG. The steel is dipped in molten zinc after it's been cut and welded. This creates a super thick protective layer, think 45 to 85 micrometers, that covers every single nook and cranny. But on the right, pre-galvanized steel gets a much thinner coating before it's cut. So what happens? Every cut, every edge is left totally vulnerable to rust. The difference in protection is just enormous. And this chart? Well, it tells the rest of the story. Hot dip galvanized gives you real, long-term outdoor protection. Pre-galvanized, its life is limited, at best. And then you have electroplated zinc, with a coating that's wafer thin. It's practically guaranteed to fail outdoors, sometimes in as little as 5 years. You see, the small savings you might get up front are just not worth the spectacular failure you're buying down the road. But corrosion isn't the only trap waiting for you. The second big mistake people make is getting the load capacity wrong. So let's pivot to a different case study, an automotive plant that was built just last year, and see how this exact thing played out. Here's our next number, 11%. That was the material cost overrun on that automotive plant project. Why? All because the load class specified for the cable tray just couldn't handle the actual weight of the cables being laid in it. You see, underspecifying by even a single class has immediate, painful financial consequences. And the pain doesn't stop with the budget, oh no. That 11% cost increase came with a 3-week project delay. In the world of industrial manufacturing, 3 weeks of delay can mean millions in lost production. The ripple effects from a mistake like this are just huge.
So how do you avoid this mess? Well, it's actually a really straightforward process, governed by the IEC 61537 standard. First, you just calculate the total weight of all your cables per meter. Second, and this is absolutely critical, do not skip this, you add a 20 to 25% margin for the future. Trust me, you will always be adding more cables later. Finally, you just match that total weight to the right load class. It's really that simple.
I want to just pause on this quote for a second because it perfectly sums up the right mindset. Choosing between hot dip and pre-galvanized isn't about finding the cheapest option on a spreadsheet. It is a corrosion engineering decision, and it has long-term consequences for the integrity of your entire facility. Okay, so we've covered how to avoid the most common and costly failures. Now let's talk about future-proofing. How do you go beyond just good enough and actually build a system that's designed for maximum longevity, especially when you're dealing with really harsh environments? For the absolute most challenging sites, I'm talking coastal areas, chemical plants, environments that get a C4 or C5 rating for corrosivity, you need what's called a duplex system. It's basically a two-layer defense. You start with that tough, hot-dip galvanized base, and then you add a protective topcoat of epoxy or polyester powder. It is the ultimate defense against corrosion. Now, yes, this level of protection does come at a higher upfront cost. As you can see here, a duplex system might add about 15 to 20% to the initial material price compared to just standard HDG. But what do you get for that investment? This is what you get. You can potentially double the effective service life of your cable management system. That extra 20% up front could buy you decades of extra performance, helping you avoid an incredibly expensive replacement project down the line. The return on that investment is just undeniable. And here's one last advanced tip for you: the rung pitch rule of thumb. The spacing between the rungs on your ladder tray is super important for supporting your cables the right way. A simple rule is to make sure that spacing isn't more than 6 times the outer diameter of your biggest cable. Especially for those big medium voltage feeders, this is non-negotiable if you want to prevent cable sag and long-term damage. So let's bring this all together. From the thickness of your coating to the load class to the spacing of your rungs, the message is crystal clear. Specifying a cable tray system isn't just about filling out a purchase order, it's a series of critical engineering decisions. And that really leaves us with one final question to think about. Are you treating your cable management system as just another line item cost to be squeezed? Or are you treating it as a long-term investment in the operational integrity and safety of your facility? The answer to that question is going to determine whether you avoid all the mistakes we've talked about today.